The idea of practice is assuming responsibility for the recreation, the proper recreation of your future, based upon practice, based upon recognition of the unnecessariness, the uselessness, futility of suffering. So what are you seeing then? Now that you're here, now, what are you seeing now? What is being seen now?
Our sense perception is on. Perceiving sight, smells, sounds, touches.
Practice. Okay. Meditation without ritualization. Meditation, samadhi, without counting breaths. Any other comments on the word hue, the process of hewing, which is only exhalation with a degree of consciousness. It's like awakened exhaling. Yeah. It's like pushing the garbage out of your system. Hue, already free. Hue, I'm already liberated. Hue, I am already true. All can be, and in the state of becoming, true. Already burned, already gone. Hue, already enlightened. Already complete, already perfect. It's an affirmation of a fact that the body's already, because it's exhaling, releasing and relieving itself, balancing itself, and staying in harmony with the Tao. It's already Tao. It's not like you're joining anything, it's just what you're always doing, you just don't know any better. Did you know you were hewing? Did you know you were breathing? Oh, right. My goodness, never thought of it that way. Basic nature. It's good practice. And sometimes you have to be around the peeps who are operating from nothing more than that. The basic. Bottom line. Breathing, feeling, seeing at a totally different level. Playing. Sitting, communicating with peeps. From the state of meditation, not living life, avoiding it, and then trying to create it. Right? Say, tonight, for 20 minutes, under these specific conditions, at this location, I'm going to attempt to meditate. By golly, I will achieve it. So, come evening, you're sitting down, you're doing your thing, and you start to feel relaxed, and you start to feel the fact that your body is not a body. You have this basic insight. It never was a body. It can never be a body. Or anything you can think of. It is maybe the universe. Your body is the universe already. The mind that perceives the universe is the universe perceiving itself. It's basic insight. So already beyond meditation, already gone. Understand that? You have a better sense of the paradox of practice. From ritual levels to realization levels, reality. Baby steps, from point to point. The goal is walking, but each step is an accomplishment. So you got to put that step on the ground. You might fall and bust yourself. Right. So you got to have these very conscious, careful baby steps that enable you to experience your movement. Your movement, right. Your progression. It's a big issue, progression. And of course, you know, the philosophers and the metaphysicians and the practitioners, right? The logicians would say, well, you know, there's no progression. Right? So, of course, there is. That's why you say there's no progression, because there is a progression. inevitably, you know. There is progression. Conception to birth, to life, to death, there is a progression, and so on. So we can call it that there's no progression. But we can call it that because we know there is a progression. And we have the intellectual liberty to say there is none. So we can negate it for our pleasure and say, no, there's nothing. But everybody is religious in terms of where they have their heart. Where your heart is what your religion is. If it's money, there's your religion. If it's sex, there's your religion. If it's Coca-Cola, there's your religion. You believe in that. You do it. Your body does, at least. Your vital instincts tell you that thing. So religion is what you do. Not what you say and believe, but what you're suffering. To put it sweetly. Chanting is self-purifying, self-liberating, generating alpha waves, relaxing your brain and enabling you to be less obstructed and more creative. That's a physics fact already, right? With neurologic experimentation, they've made that determination already. That native chanting brings you to an alpha wave state, just like singing a song. Basic, nothing cultic about it, totally native to our being, and self-regulating. The body will do it. So you whistle to relax yourself, you do all these little things to relax yourself. They are forms of, but not deliberate forms of hewing, because they affect your breathing. Here you're going to hew, it's like bringing all of that into one moment. Conscious relaxation, already done. Hew. Already gone. Say, already no body. Right. Practice of the masters. So conscious speech. Golden speech. Using your mouth properly for the first time in your life. Not as a garbage bag, a garbage can.
And the greeting also was used.
It's the same thing. It's like saying light, peace, Shu, beauty, pure, ultimate goodness, Shu, release, liberation, happiness. It's a long list of all goodness, infinite goodness, Shu. It's grace. Because it's conscious breathing. Conscious breathing, which you must do to breathe, and then toning, because you need to exercise your speech in the spirit of spirit, which is breathing, spirit breath. Very simple, very basic. Not profound at all, just simple. Why, when, and where? How? Now. Right? Practice. Which is not practice then. We use the word practice. It's kind of like saying relax. So you relax and let your body just sink into the earth, basically. Peaceful manner. So you relax the tension in your upper body, where a lot of the stiffness and tightness is, and in your head and your mind and your ears and your perception, as you say. Perception is tightness, perception, no perception, relaxation, beyond relaxation. So then we're talking about a state of being relaxed, not relaxing yourself. It's like being stillness instead of slowing yourself down. What's to slow down if you're still? Hold on to your stillness. liberate yourself into vastness. Yeah. These are concepts. And we're talking about the sky. That's what it's a native skyness. Yeah. Father Sky, Mother Earth. Yeah. All terms. Yeah. Basic. Primitives use these great concepts. Yeah. The family of the solar system. Yeah. The star family. Primitives. Not astrophysicists. Yeah. Peeps with eyes understand. Peeps with hearts feel it, sense it. Peeps with common sense remain unconfused. They wonder. They keep the peace. So the body is this, medium for, interconscious awareness, intraconscious awareness, interconscious awareness, inner conscious awareness. And that would imply operating from, again, all bodies. The all bodies as one body, which means no body in particular, which is a certain kind of spiritual, let's say, insight into the nature of consciousness. And when we go to sleep, if we're this mindful of the fact that going to sleep is an opportunity to voyage and journey, not only to just the next body of, let's say, practical stress release, based upon the physical body's determination as to what body your consciousness has to go to, but then much more of an open scientific view of, say, the other bodies. Okay? Or say, yes, I want to examine, I'm going to sleep now, I want to examine things on the causal body, on the causal plane of time, and sort out things relative to why I'm going through this right now. So say, I'm open to sort this out on the causal plane, whether it's a past, present, or future voyage, or in a parallel voyage relative to the past. I'm open to it. I'm not afraid of it. So if it's going to balance band, we're going to be open to whatever it is, because I don't want to fear fixing, balancing, harmonizing, realizing, healing, or purifying my particular karmic situation. The simple reality that love and being love is perfection. Love as be love is perfection. Be love. That's the burn, because what that does is defy every trace of resistance, every trace of karmic clinging that there could be, because it's saying, be love, all together, all at once, everything, everyone, and nothing. Be it. It's huge. It's incomprehensible. Since it's incomprehensible, it's very good practice. What did you say? Mindless. Perfect. Heart, yes, it is that way. Educate yourself. So if you have a lack of intelligence in a certain way, then you need to educate. It needs training. So there are all kinds of ways to bring a person up to speed depending on what it is they need to do. So when we're talking about breathing practice, and it's something that's going on all the time. It's not what you're doing with your eyes, it's not what you're doing with your hands, it's not what you're doing with your instruments, it's what you're doing with your breathing. And how you are using your breath to etherically access the universe in a certain way. And then you start to feel this huge connection, the etheric connection with space connection, or a heart connection of vastness. So that's how you're breathing into it. And it's a very basic practice, very preliminary. And I think the yogis would agree with that. It's a native practice. That means it's what humans do. It's what we have to do. The animals may have their own sense of what that is. We're not going to try and prejudge them and say, well, they don't practice as well as we do, or we practice better than they do. Or maybe they practice better than we do. Maybe we can take a few lessons from them with that. So the issue is not to be caught up in these kinds of considerations, but just breathe properly. Just slow down, relax, and breathe. But you breathe to do. You don't just breathe to breathe. You have to breathe to increase your capacity to be able to do more, and with less resistance. You have to overcome gravitational resistances that are built into you from the river of blood. You know, you got ancestral gravitational blockages that you have to overcome in yourself. These fears, concerns, these assumptions of limitations and inadequacy and inability and so on. Frustration, competition, let's say defeating programs. Say self-defeating competition programs. Put it differently. Yeah. So you're not competing with anybody. You're just breathing and maximizing your capacity to be able to do whatever it is you have to do with high capacity, with great intensity, great feeling, great passion, and great compassion ultimately.
What along the path isn't accomplished through practice?
Why would you be concerned about what isn't accomplished through practice? Well, everything is accomplished through practice. Yeah. Everything is accomplished through practice. It's all about practice. But practice, we're not talking about formal practice. We're talking about putting your attention, placing your attention properly. Yeah. So it depends on what your focus is. And mind is that kind of machine, where you have your mind and what you place it on, there you be, that you have, that you validate, that you intensify, that you extend, that you deepen, that you reinforce, that you become. And if it's good, it's good. If it's not, then it's not. So it's a matter of awareness. Therefore you have the images of these teachers, these gurus sitting in meditation positions, and that could be useful to some peeps. It could be used to awaken the fact that you've already done that and you've forgotten. So get over it. Discipline is not a nice guy occupation. It's tough, it's bitter, strong, crazy. People go through great austerities. I mean, there's a lot of conflict that has to be managed in the process of, let's say, fasting, say, any of the austerities that are typical for the monastic line. Say, these conscious deprivational practices that enable you, like in native traditions, we're going right back to native traditions. If you want to know, stop eating. If you want to grow, understand. You need to strip yourself down to your most basic, fundamental level of reality. Right? Survival. Yeah? And you can try and do that, that's less physically so as not to harm yourself. Try and do that with your mind, your imagination. So that letting go, then you start to see, without having to be convinced or persuaded about it, letting go of certain things is really a way of lightening your load so that you have a better possibility of ascent, like a balloon. Ascent, lighter, higher, heavier, lower. Fact of life. So, in other words, if we are dealing with the direct realization, you're in the state of mind of direct realization, depending on what you comprehend of that. Okay? The direct realization is not talking about something that's other than you are, other than what is, other than reality. Okay? Direct realization is simply thus. Taste. Comment?
So is there an end to practice? Do people...
No, there's no end to life. Right? There's no beginning to life. So practice is something which is ongoing.
There's no graduation, there's no...
Well, there is graduation, but graduation is part of the continuity. It's part of the unfoldment. It can be interpreted as graduate or growing. Is there growing? Yeah. Do you become more aware, more relaxed? Yeah. So we can say there's the appearance of graduation, but it's an unfoldment, just like the flower unfolding to the presence of the sun. It opens. So there's an opening. There's slight opening. There's more opening. And it's completely open, and then the petals fall off They fall to the ground. Totally open. Right? Right, gone beyond opening. Opening to extinction. So you graduated from the need to open to opening so much you blew up. Right. Full-blown opening. Right. Exhaustion, cessation, which is what the realization is about. No more opening. No, you can't open anymore beyond. Until you got beyond opening. That's the beginning point. Freedom then is the beginning point. That's the basis of my music. Knowing everything already. And so you have nothing in your way. And then you let the moment determine the perfection of the expression. And so people who are practicing, not people who are just living day by day, taking things as they come and they go, but those who are actually practicing also have the intention of being free of all of their suffering. That's what practice is about. The ongoing transformational purification of phenomena, which was inherited, showing up, and that needs to be transformed from a dark or low vibration into a higher or more beautiful vibration. As a reality, not as a moment or so of vision or an insight or some kind of random experience, the potential of an ongoing reality. So you need to experiment. That's what I recommend everyone do. If they can, experiment with breathing techniques to see which are more conducive to their own needs. Slowing down the breathing, you don't need any particular training to do that. You just slow your breathing down, do 10 minutes of very slow breathing, very deep breathing, and then moderate breathing, normal breathing, and then you can try to get to a place where you're not breathing at all, but the breathing is very conscious.
How can we disarm an emotion if it's identified as non-productive?
Yeah, that's what emotion? What emotion? Whose emotion? The important thing is to know emotion first. That means if your present moment is not plagued by emotionalism as such, form of it, fear, doubt, negative energy, and so on, then you know no emotion. So when an emotion does arise, when it's your time to feel choked up or disturbed or full of whatever the emotion is, you know that there's no emotion. There is no emotion. So this would be an appearance that is short-lived rather than something arising to suck you into some kind of preoccupation or disturbance beyond the point. So emotions are not the problem. It's what we do with them that are the problem. We have to use it. If it's in your nature, in your psyche to be emotional in some way, you want to be able to use it and cooperate with it. Say, emotions, now listen, this is where it's going to be, emotions. When you hear me say this is where it's going to be, dogs. I won't have it any other way. I love you too. Everything arises to be trained. Never forget that point. The body and the mind are dogs begging to be trained. They want nothing more than to be your best friend. And then sacrifice whatever it is. If you have to give up music, if you have to give up family for a period of time, whatever your addictions are, give them up. As I was just talking to somebody briefly a few moments ago on the topic of giving yourself some rest from your activities, from your programs, your indulgences, your habits, your addictions as such, so you can just sit and breathe which is an addiction the body has, but it's okay. We're not talking about addictions being bad. It depends on what they are, what purpose they serve. Addiction to reading, addiction to video games. I mean, everywhere you look, somebody's addicted to everything. And so we're talking about understanding that as part of this whole toxicity or corruption or perversion of consciousness relative to distraction, and trying to get some sanity relative to detachment and assuming some reality beyond that, so that there is some good old-fashioned healing. So we're talking healing by breathing and letting everything be what it is, which then becomes a way of life, and then you find yourself just doing that. That's what the peeps have to focus in on, tune in on, and that's what we say peeps have to chant for. But it doesn't exclude anything else you may have to do. Sex, if you're into sex, if you're into yoga, whatever the body modification is that you need, or the unraveling, if it's the psychic processes that come with breathing. So yeah, you have to go through it. You have to be recharging depending on what level of burn you're exposed to. You have to put it back in. So that means breathing, that means chanting, that means some eating. Not too much, because then that'll bring you down. And so it's a matter of knowing when you need what kind of grounding, depending on what you have to do. And for instance, in this case, I haven't had any food today at all, so I'm able to stay on a mental wavelength more easily, more gracefully. And as soon as I eat, then that brings the body back down, and then I have to wait an hour or two before I start to feel the energy building up as far as I go. So the conversation will change from one condition to the other condition. Stay focused, but it will be more characteristic of the state of the body at that particular time. So you have to be recharging and releasing yourself of the phenomena that's being burnt up. You have to be unloading the burden of thinking and feeling, thought, and seeing, and perceiving, and considering. All of this can be exhausting too. Very stressful. The change, the difference, seeing the idea or recognizing that one has a long ways to go, that there's a lot of work ahead, that's exhausting. Considering, well, I haven't done this before, that's exhausting. This is all new, exhausting. I should have done better before, exhausting. Got to do better now, totally exhausting. The fact that you're still sitting up is amazing. How do you do it? So everything then is like exhausting. See, we're not able to see it in terms of stress, we see it in terms of, we'd like to have infinite energy. Well, then you have to work towards a certain kind of energy, where you have more power, you're more on the outflow, not on the inflow, not thinking and introverting stuff, which is exhausting, it's burdening. So we have to have the liberational thing to keep the happiness coming. We're really talking about the universe. Okay. We're really talking about the universe, yeah. And so we're talking about all the planes of consciousness, which really is very, very consonant with certain meditation techniques as well, when we're talking about getting to emptiness. It means everything has to be sacrificed. You have to do whatever you can to be in that place, whatever it is. It means everything, the whole life has to be sacrificed, completely transformed, but not without the impulse of recognizing the enlightenment for what it is. Why do anything? For its own sake, so to speak. Yeah. So we're really talking about having an understanding that your karma stands in the way. So all of that needs to be sacrificed. Basically what the Dharma is all about. What training is for. So that you suffer on nothing. You got to get through the Heart Sutra, which is there's no anything, no suffering, no one to suffer, and so on. That can be exhausting for peeps, you see, because we're talking about undoing karma. It's totally exhausting. Undoing all your props, your crutches, all your supports, it's totally exhausting. So to come here and you have nothing to stand on here, very flabbergasting. In a manner of speaking, it's exhausting. To conceive of that, let alone to withstand a certain kind of recognition of it. Yeah. That's just part of the transformational process. It comes and it goes, and your energy levels change over time depending on what you're doing when you're not here. So if you're here for a little bit of a time, then you're staying in this kind of sense, this bubble of practice as such, and you're breathing and doing things to sustain it. And chanting as well, burning off more stuff through the chanting, and not going back to other energies with regards to other peeps and whatever they bring to you to burden you and cause you more stress to worry about, be concerned about. So there's a difference here that requires a certain adaptation, which is very self-revealing for certain peeps. As any monastic situation is going to be self-revealing in that sense, because they all have their own way of doing things, their own scale in terms of time scale that they work from. Some are up at 3 o'clock, some are up at 4 or 5 o'clock. And so it's very, very different. You have to adapt to that structure, and as you start to adapt, that will be exhausting. First couple of days, exhausting, pretty understandable, because you're adapting. When you go to stay at a hotel, it takes you a couple of days before you adapt to the hotel, and your body settles in. So this is part of the process of moving from location to location, as much as from stage to stage or level to level, or peep to peep. Foremost issue is the sacrificial process, see. And that includes self-righteousness. It includes every kind of cultural whatever, see. See, where I came up through the Christian dogma was that I wanted God to purify me of everything when I was a child. If it was Jesus saying, Lord, take all of this. This is your body. Take it all. Please grant me the enlightenment, see, of love itself, see, truth. Truth of the presence of the Father, is the heart. Whatever it was, take my bones, take my organs, take my flesh, whatever, please take it in return. Give me what is true. So that would imply death to life, to rebirth, to regeneration, to enlightenment. It's radical, very simple, in simple terms maybe. But I knew that's what it was, because in my case I had these experiences that would indicate to me that we weren't physical beings, we were spiritual beings. Spiritual beings. So the material was not the issue. The spirit was the issue. But yeah, all of these things are part of it. Our food is supposed to help us awaken. I think that's really what is another aspect of this. Are we eating as part of our awakenment? Are we sleeping as part of our awakenment? Are we speaking as part of our awakenment? What do we do? Are we playing music as part of our awakenment? Are we relating to one another as part of our awakenment or part of our sleep inducement consciousness? So I think that's really what we're saying in terms of the chemistry. We're really talking about the chemistry of life, the chemistry of nature, and how that is either working or not working for our awakenment. Say, if it were conducive to drink a little bit of gasoline, let's say, if you can get away with it, if your body could adapt to that, and say, well, then whatever you have to do, you have to do that. It may not work for everyone. I think that's the most important thing that may not be indicated there, that everything that's being done is relative to whom and whose body. Some people can eat glass. Again, what you eat is relative to the nature of your body. Can't say that not eating glass is better for that person. I can't say that eating glass is better for me. So we're talking about the relativity relative to chemistry, human intelligence, the basic body functioning, the design, the river blood, all these factors, and what part of the earth or what dimension of the earth you represent as a cosmic being or the simple native person coming. So the whole liberational thing is the transformation of our chemistry, fundamentally. Our chemistry is also something that we can say has to do with our programming. So when you're fasting, you see some of your programming change. And so if we fast, which means now trying to find some kind of, firstly, working on the comfort. So we have comfort, which is deprivation. Point. And then we have deprivation, which is enlightenment. Another point. So then when we look at what we're doing to comfort ourselves to keep us asleep, that would be called a narcotic, psychically. That has you asleep, that has you in a bad way, which means a bad program. In, let's see, maybe some would call it a demonic circuit, self-defeating circuit, self-limiting circuit, self-slavery imposing circuit. Saying, I can't be beyond this path. So that's a corruption of your spiritual circuitry, and that's what you need to work on, because that's affecting your chemistry. That's affecting chemistry. Chemistry then is affecting the body, and the functioning of the body is retarded, inhibited, or haywire.
So there's obviously the enlightenment.
Yeah, the so-called enlightenment. Yes.
Yeah. It can happen, obviously, in your case, outside of any kind of an institution.
It can happen from the inside out, exactly, which is the way it should happen. That's the only place it actually happens. And if you're talking about an institution, you're talking about a culture that offers favorable conditions for such a thing to happen. The problem, of course, is all those conditions are relevant to the happening. In fact, when the happening happens, you may say, what are these conditions about? Why any conditions at that point? Because then, if it happens in the way that it is known to have happened, then it creates its own conditions, which is the way it should be. It turns its own wheel. It sits as its own tree, so to speak. And it has nothing to do with ego, in fact. Because we might say that the whole thing about society and saving other people is just a humongous ego trip founded upon some kind of arrogance that you can do anything for the sake of others. There are no others anyway. So, the whole proposition of for the sake of others and enlightening other beings is rather interesting. So, comment? So let's put it in more basic terms. Yeah, it's a good starting point. Because if you're totally immersed in self-limitation, egotism, then you need to try and balance that out. So you got to reverse it. You got to put some emphasis on service. Yeah. So even the whole idea of service is for beginners. If we are using the terminology of, let's say, alertness, vigilance, perception even, apprehension, looking, seeing, hearing, feeling, knowing, so being. Then if we're talking about consciousness, we're really meaning the basic awareness of itself. Just awareness as awareness for its own purpose. Then it is awareness of awareness itself. And so that event of awareness as awareness itself is not a word. The word as soon as you get the itself in terms of an experiential level of being itself, awareness as itself, or awareness is itself, then you are practicing at that moment. There's nothing that's going on. There's no one there. See, what you have is the awareness. It is. See, is awareness. You have the is awareness, and that's what good practice is about. So when we get to the is awareness, we see that it's not like the tree or peeps, see, or the mic stand, right? See, or my friends, the things. We're not talking about things. No props, no crutches. Earth, everything. Awareness, allness, wholeness, all at onceness. Beyond this.
So when we sit and do a formalized practice, sitting meditation, following the breath, maybe some chanting.
It has to be conducted in the spirit of is awareness. Awareness. Something like that. Is awareness awareness? It's the is awareness awareness, not a question. It's the is awareness awareness. Distinction. Then the practice can be fruitful. Then what you're doing or using as a method is really open. It's not who you are as much as what you're able then to become more part of. The issue of time, right? The perception of time as has been, or time as will be, or time as being experienced in some form of perceivable nowness. And how these dimensions of perception, perhaps, in the mind realm, in the mental realm, the field of karma and creation, say, converge into zero space, say, zeroness, has everything to do with the ability or inability to create. That is to hear, know, sense, and be the next. And the next. And the next to the fullest. Next. The next light. The next enlightenment. The next fullness. The next perfection. Right. The next master. The next realize anything. The next realize unrealization. Non-realization. Everything. And this practice is self-liberation. Continually liberating self from itself. Freeing the channels. Breathing the peace of lightness, gladness, happiness. Peace. Healing. And fullness altogether. Without missing a beat in terms of what needs to be done. Because for this to be what it is, it's not an obstruction to what needs to be done. This being what it is enables free action to complete what needs to be done. This is free action, as it is free speech, free sitting, as it is free listening, and free togetherness. Freeing. See? Into self-liberational practice. Heart beating, self-liberation. Brain waving, self-liberation. Lungs breathing, self-liberation. Okay. Body resting in self-liberation. Eye seeing, self-liberation. Ears hearing, self-liberation. Nostrils inhaling, self-liberation. Exhaling, self-liberation. Mouth vibrating, self-liberation. Throat expressing, self-liberation. Presence being, self-liberation. To the infinite. Peace. Phew.